Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser, and it is good to be back with you. It's 2 straight days without doing a show. I felt a little odd. I felt a little naked not being on here with all of you. I missed you. Hopefully, you are happy to be back with me on this lovely Monday morning here in the Pacific Northwest as we continue on down the kind of quiet period of the NFL season as all NFL players, teams, coaches are on their vacations and enjoying their downtime. Really, the only true downtime in what has become almost a 365-day a year NFL calendar. And I took a little time this weekend because we had a bunch of family in town, friends. We were celebrating. My wife and I both turning 50 this year, 100 together, I guess, and had a really, really nice time this weekend. So appreciate you guys understanding me not being available. Plus, I want to wish a really happy Monday to my mom. Hawk Blogger Mom is getting over her second hip surgery, and I know it has not been the easiest of rehabs for her as she's just getting back from the hospital, but hopefully she's feeling better and healing up, as well as my sister, who's getting over multiple knee surgeries from a biking accident. So we are a little bit infirmed in the Hawk Blogger family line, and hopefully everybody's doing a little bit better this morning. But and hopefully all of you are doing really well this morning. What I want to cover today is something that I tracked down kind of by happenstance, to be honest. There was a comment that was made by Ad Dirty, AD, as he is known, the Seahawks defensive coordinator, when I think it was I think I asked, it doesn't matter who asked him, something about Boye Mafe. And Ad Dirty said, hey, he's been a really good player on third down, and we want to kind of bring him to life more on first and second down. So I started kind of digging into first and second down numbers. And as I was doing that, I found kind of a interesting set of things happening for the Seahawks defense on first down in general. And the more I dug into it, the more I thought it was worthy of a full episode. So I'm going to spend the whole time talking about the Seahawks first down defense and some issues that are there. Also, maybe see if maybe there's some reasons to think it could get better. But that's the main topic of today. And the other thing I wanted to just bring up, if you haven't been there yet, hbtix.com is really humming. We've got dozens and dozens, like I think over 100 tickets available up there now. If you sign up, it's free. I get nothing, no fees or anything charged for buying tickets there or selling tickets there. And there's now a weekly email that will go out if you sign up telling you all the tickets that are there. So yeah, a lot of good stuff happening. We are selling a bunch of tickets. Is the only place where if you are a Seahawks fan, you can make sure you sell your tickets to a Seahawks fan to make sure we protect our home field advantage. It's just a little labor of love for me. hbtix.com. Make sure you let as many people know about it as possible and use it every day. Use it as often as possible to get those tickets in the hands of other Seahawks fans. All right, so what is this first down issue? And what I'll kind of do, there's a lot of ways I could take you down this path. I'm going to start by sharing something that's a little bit of an aside, but something that I found that was interesting to me when I started this. So the first thing I looked at is just isolating first downs last year. Who had the most sacks in the NFL on first down? I guarantee you're not going to guess who has the most sacks in the NFL on first down. I guarantee you that you probably, in your first 5 guesses, in your first 10 guesses, in your first 15 or 20 guesses, I bet you will not guess who had the most sacks in the NFL last year on first down. I had to double check this, triple check this to make sure it was right. Now, I'm giving you a little bit of time to guess. But before I give you the answer, I will give you a clue. This person is on the Seahawks. This person's on the Seahawks. Who do you think on the Seahawks led the entire NFL in first down sacks? This is an individual player, not a team. Individual player. Okay. First guess I see is Big Cat, Leonard Williams. That would be the obvious guess. I mean, of course it would be Leonard Williams. The correct answer is Derek Hall. Derek Hall led the entire NFL with 5 sacks on first down last year. So I would have never guessed that. It wouldn't have been like I would have gone through every, known pass rusher in the NFL before getting there. He had 5 sacks on first downs last year. That was ahead of, let's see, 3, 4, 5 players that had 4.5. Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, Nick Bosa, Tuli Tupulatu from the Chargers, and Trey Hendrickson. So that's kind of interesting. And all by itself was interesting because one of the other things that Ad and Dirty said is that Derek Hall kind of has not the opposite problem of Boye Mafe, but he is going hard every single play to the point where they're kind of like, you got to know when to maybe save a little bit in the tank for the big moments. And so, I mean, this is an interesting example of the fact that Derek Hall is coming alive right from the start on series with 5 first down sacks. You go through this list and you kind of keep going down the list, and there's not a lot of other Seahawks that show up. I would have to go. I'm not going to count how far down, but the next player for the Seahawks that shows up on this list is Leonard Williams, and he had 1.5 sacks on first downs last year. Of Boye Mafe's, Devin Witherspoon had 1 sack. Of Boye Mafe's sacks last year, I don't think any of them came on first down. Let me do a quick search. Yes, he had 0 sacks last year on first down. So that was kind of the, it's not the end all be all, but it was an indication, and it got me started when I was looking at this. But sacks are not the only way to kind of evaluate first down defense. So I looked to see about which players have the most tackles for loss on first down last year. And unfortunately, I can't tell you that the number 1 player in the NFL was a Seahawk again. In fact, I don't think any of the top 10 players were Seahawks. Maybe in the top 20. We will see. I'll have to do some counting, but it gets close. Number 1 player in the NFL last year in tackles for loss on first down, Quincy Williams. Then Max Crosby, Jared Verse, and Grover Stewart were all tied for second with 10 tackles for loss on first down. And then you get Tuli again from San Diego, Nick Bosa, Nick Bolton, Devin Bush, interestingly, Yaya Diaby, Mike Hilton. Interesting there as a nickel corner to have 9 tackles for loss on first down. Zach Allen is up there, Jonathan Cooper, Frankie Louvu, Levante David, JOK, the linebacker from Cleveland, Brian Burns, Zach Bond. You get like a lot of these names. You get into Trey McFadden, Myles Garrett, Jonathan Greenard, Devontae Wyatt, Dante Fowler, and you finally get to Leonard Williams. So Leonard Williams had 7 tackles for loss on first down last year. As you keep kind of going down this list, if I look for, I think I have to expand something. If I look for Derek Hall, he, other than his sacks, didn't have a lot of tackles for loss. If I look for Boye Mafe had 2 tackles for loss on first down. If I look for Ernest Jones had 1 tackle for loss on first down last year. If I look for, who else would we look for? Let's look for Jaron Reed. He had 1 tackle for loss on first down. I can look for Tyrese Knight. He had 1 tackle for loss on first down. So not a lot of Seahawks making tackles for loss on early downs. And if you go and you look at all NFL defenses, let's not look at individual players. You just look at defenses. How many tackles for loss did they have on first down? The Cleveland Browns led the NFL last year with 71 tackles for loss on first down. The Seahawks ranked not in the top 10, not in the top 20. They ranked 27th in the NFL in tackles for loss on first down. They had 37. So basically half of what Cleveland, the league leaders, did on first down. We'll get into where this shows up in other places, but the Seahawks defense was not creating second and long situations for a lot of teams. So I kind of kept looking around as I went through this, and I wanted to see, well, what about if we just look at first down? What are the average yards that teams are giving up on defense on first down in the NFL last year? Well, believe it or not, the New York Jets were number 1 in the NFL last year, allowing 3.9 yards per play on first down. Interestingly, the Las Vegas Raiders were second in the NFL at 4.3 yards average play on first down. And then you get into teams like Houston and Denver and Philadelphia and Minnesota and Detroit, like the best defenses in the NFL last year, showing up in those lists. The Seahawks, which were a top 10 defense in most measures, they finished not in the top 10, not in the top 20. They finished 28th in the NFL in average yards allowed on first down at 5.7 yards per play on first down. And if you go a little further, I was like, well, whoa, okay, so let's see if we get into some of the advanced metrics. Let's look at EPA per play. Well, it doesn't get any better. The Seahawks ranked 30th in the NFL on defense in first down EPA per play. 30th. The only teams that were worse were Carolina and Jacksonville. They were worse than New England. They were worse than a lot of teams, pretty much every team. If you look at success rate, the Seahawks were 28th in the NFL in first down success rate. And it was pretty equal among passing. They were 31st, second to last in the NFL in drop back EPA per play on first downs. They were 28th in the NFL in rushing EPA on first downs. And so the next thing I kind of thought about was, well, maybe this was part of the overall issue that was happening in the first part of the year. So let's actually limit this. Let's just look at weeks 9 on, when the Seahawks defense really started to be a top 5 defense overall. Because, of course, if they were a top 5 defense overall, we're probably going to see very significantly better numbers on first down later in the year. Not so much. From week 9 on, the Seahawks defense ranked 25th in the NFL in first down EPA per play. They ranked 24th in the NFL in success rate on first downs. So this was not a problem that kind of went away. And what's further, this was one of the things that I found really eye-opening. First down was a bellwether for the Seahawks. The first down defense was a bellwether for the Seahawks' fortunes pretty much all year long. If you look at Seahawks opponents and you say, okay, How did they perform on first downs? I'm going to tell you the teams that had the best first down performances against the Seahawks. The first game against the 49ers, San Francisco averaged 10 yards per play on first down. 10 yards per play. Second, Detroit Lions, 9.2 yards per play on first down. New York Giants, 7.6. Green Bay Packers, 6.8. Buffalo Bills, 6.5. Are you sensing a pattern here? Those were all losses, and they were all pretty catastrophic losses for the Seahawks. In many cases, they were blowout losses for the Seahawks. Now, you get to the teams that struggled the most against the Seahawks on first down. The Chicago Bears, the Denver Broncos, the New York Jets, the New England Patriots. The second time that the 49ers faced the Seahawks, which is one of the things I'll talk about as maybe a sign of progress. The Atlanta Falcons, the Arizona Cardinals, the Rams even struggled pretty much on first down. In fact, I haven't looked up what they did in that first game, but I don't think they did well in that first game, and that should have been a win. So in almost every case here, if the Seahawks defense struggled on first down, they lost. The game was lost, and it was often lost going away. If the Seahawks defense performed well on first down, they won. So I think this is pretty important. This is a pretty important aspect of the team's performance that I just don't feel like I know I haven't spent time digging in on this. I listened to a lot of stuff about the Seahawks. I haven't heard anybody else do any deep dive on Seahawks first down defensive performance. So this might be new. This might be a new one for us all to kind of learn about together. And I wanted to spend a little time, diving in as far as it's realistically possible. I don't know that we're going to get any true answers here, but I just wanted to set the stage. That's the issue that I wanted to spend some time talking about, because it's not great. It's not great. And I'm, for folks that are like, oh man, it got better after they made all the personnel changes. Maybe it got better after the scheme changes. I just showed you the numbers did not get that much better after those changes. So, I would be careful to assume that this is a solved problem for the Seahawks. And we're going to look a little bit at Baltimore for previous years. We're also going to look at some of the other Mike Macdonald coaching tree defenses to see how some of those did. For example, you know how I brought up first down tackles for loss? Like which teams had the most tackles for loss on first down? I'm going to go down this list. Tell me the first one that is a disciple of Mike Macdonald. Cleveland, New York Giants, Las Vegas Raiders, Washington Commanders, Green Bay Packers, Jets, Colts, Jags, Bengals, Houston, Atlanta, Arizona, Buffalo. None of those are the Mike Macdonald scheme. Chicago, Minnesota, Tennessee is the first one that shows up on this list. One of the things I believe to be a question, I don't have the answer, but I believe this is a question, is I'm not convinced that Mike Macdonald's defense is an attacking defense. I think it is a defense that is limiting explosive. It is confusing teams, does a lot of things really well, great coverage disguises, all this stuff, great at creating pressure, especially on clear passing situations. But I'm not sure they are penetrating and getting upfield significantly. I might be wrong. That's a question maybe I'll ask Cody Alexander or some of the other folks, Griff, some of the other folks that break down these things more than I would from a scheme perspective. But there seems to at least be some evidence to suggest that this is maybe a systemic issue with this scheme, that they are not putting teams in negative situations on first down. And so they're kind of then putting themselves in some tougher situations to get off the field later. Even the LA Chargers, who were one of the best defenses in the NFL last year, by some measure, they were the best defense. They had the same tackle for loss number on first down as the Seahawks last year. It's 37. They were tied for, 27th in the NFL in that stat. So again, even really highly evolved versions, or really like high performing versions of that Mike Macdonald scheme, don't seem to be piling up the negative plays on first down. So that's at least some indication. We'll look at some other indications and indicators as well. Before I keep going, I want to look at the Rams thing. I looked at the 49ers earlier. They went from I think they went from like 10 yards per play against the Seahawks to 3.3. They had 10.1. They went from 10.1 to, I want to say, 3.5. So there's a big change for them from the first time to the second time. That's good news. Then the other one, let's look at the Rams. All right, let's look at the Rams. So the Rams, I want to see that first game, because the second game was like, I just don't put much stock into it. So I have to look at where this was. Okay, we'll look in Seattle when they were playing in Seattle. I think that it's going to be like 5 yards per play or less. It was 5.3 yards per play on first down, which is good. Like that's fine. And that's a game that they should have lost. Like that would, if you're a Seahawks fan, that's a game the Seahawks should have won. So let's do this as well. Let's kind of look over the course of the season. Where did things get better? Where did they not? If you kind of go, let's go by week. I don't know if I have an easy way to do this. I don't, but Detroit was an early game. The Giants were an early game. Obviously, I told you the 49ers were an early game. The Bills were still relatively early. Miami was early. They did pretty well on first down, even though they lost that game. I told you that the 49ers were worse later, so that's some progress. The Rams were worse later. The Cardinals were, in neither game, were particularly good on first down. But the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings were later in the season, and the Green Bay Packers averaged 6.8 yards on first down. The Minnesota Vikings averaged 6.1 yards on first down. Neither of those are particularly great numbers. The question becomes, how much of this is coming from running plays? How much of this is coming from passing plays? So let's break this down a little bit further. Let's look at how many average. I looked at the EPA per play, and it kind of indicated that passing on first down was the bigger issue. So let's take a quick look just to see kind of the plays that we're talking about here. So I'm going to look at play type, and I'm going to say just passing plays. All right, on first down against the Seahawks last year. And let's see who did the best. The Lions, unbelievable. When the Lions passed on first down against the Seahawks in that game, you will never guess what they averaged. They averaged 15.5 yards per play on passing plays. Now, granted, there was 13 of those plays, and I think one of them was like a 70-yard touchdown to what is it, Jameson Williams or whoever it is, their speedy receiver. So that's not great. The Packers averaged 9.6 yards per play on first down when passing. The Vikings averaged 9.4 yards per play on first down when passing. The New York Giants, 8.6 yards. The Buffalo Bills, 8.5. Those are awful, awful numbers. And if we look at exactly some of these plays, let's look at the biggest ones where the most yards were gained. Let's look at the biggest EPA play differences. Brock Purdy had a 76-yard pass to Deebo Samuel for a touchdown. And yes, Jared Goff had a 70-yard pass to Jameson Williams on first down. Sam Darnold had a 39-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson to win the game in the fourth quarter. That was a first down play after the Byron Murphy face mask. Daniel Jones had a 30-yard touchdown on first down against the Seahawks. Jared Goff had a 40-yard pass to David Montgomery. That was the one where Devin Witherspoon was thrown to the ground. A rare missed tackle for Devin Witherspoon. There's a deep pass interference on Josh Jobe on a pass from Jordan Love. Christian Watson had 36 yards. Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots had 35 yards early in the season to Hunter Henry. Josh Allen had a 35-yard play to Khalil Shakir. Another one from Jared Goff to Sam Laporta for 30 yards. Reek Woolen was in coverage there. Josh Jobe was in coverage on the Khalil Shakir play against Josh Allen. Tim Boyle of the Dolphins completed a 30-yard pass to D. Eskridge on first down. So you kind of keep going through this list. Daniel Jones had a 41-yard pass to Darius Slayton against Trey Brown. These are huge. Like 30 yards is a big gain. And to get that on first down, the Seahawks gave up, let's count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And if you want to count pass interference, 12 plays of 30 yards or more on first down. I got to look up. Now I'm curious. This is how I get in these situations. I want to know if that's the worst in the NFL. So we're going to look up yards gained 30. And we're going to see 30-yard passes. Did any team in the NFL give up more 30-yard passes on first down? Thankfully, two teams did. The Dallas Cowboys and the Jacksonville Jaguars gave up 13. The Seahawks, technically, they're saying gave up 11, at least by this measure. But that's not great. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at rushing plays. Okay. Let's look at running plays for a second and see, who were the big culprits on some of the rushing plays last year on first down defense. And that was pretty concerning, the pass situation. Why did it not limit to the Seahawks? Come on. Let's get back to what we're doing here. All right. So the teams that did the best first down rushing against the Seahawks, the Giants were at 7.7 yards per play on the ground. The Lions, 6.9. Lions did whatever they wanted, running and passing against that Seahawks defense. The Vikings, 4.8 yards. The Packers, 4.6 yards. it's interesting. Like some of the teams that like Buffalo did really well against the Seahawks, but they only gained 1.9 yards rushing per play on first down. And if we look at, wait a second. Hold on. Ignore everything I just said. That was what the Seahawks did against Buffalo. That makes a lot more sense. Let's do this again. This is what you get for doing live research on the show. So we'll figure it out together. All right. So, all right, now let's do it. Okay. The Giants gained 6.5 yards on first down on the ground. The Falcons gained 6.4 yards on first down. The Bills gained 5.6 yards on the ground on first down. The Packers 5.3. Now the Vikings did the worst against the Seahawks, first down rushing 2.4 yards. And the Seahawks were they were in that game. And in fact, they felt like they were controlling that game. But the Lions, interestingly, 3.3 yards per play on first down against the Seahawks. That's not great. And it didn't matter. The Seahawks really geared up to stop the run, and the Lions just passed the ball all over the yard. They didn't have an incompletion in that game. So, I mean, I look at that and I'm just like, okay. I think the passing defense on first down seems to be the bigger issue, to be honest. And it's a little concerning. Let me switch back to passing because I want to look at who were the guys that were involved most often on the Seahawks defense in those plays. It's a little bit of a flawed way to look at it. I mentioned Derek Hall was a pretty valuable first down player with 5 sacks on first down. But if we look at like who had the most passes defensed, Devin Witherspoon had 6, Reek Woolen had 5, Josh Jobe had 3. And if you look at who made the most tackles, now this is a very flawed number. So I'm just going to share what I find. This does not mean that they are the problem. The reason I'm looking at this is if you look at cornerbacks that are making tackles, often that's on plays where they were in coverage. Devin Witherspoon had the most tackles on first down for the Seahawks. Now, he also this is just pass plays, by the way. I am limiting to just pass plays. So these are not Devin Witherspoon making tackles on a run. These are just pass plays. I can't say he gave up, but he had the most tackles, which is a little bit of a concern. Tyrese Knight was second with 21. Julian Love with third with 20. Tyrell Dodson was fourth with 17. I would not be surprised if Tyrell Dodson was part of the issue. Then you've got Ernest Jones with 16. Rayshawn Jenkins had 16. He definitely was part of the problem. And it makes me wonder a little bit. Like Reek Woolen, by the way, he's way down the list. He has 7 tackles on first down, pass plays. I'm wondering if there's a Devin Witherspoon issue here. I don't think that it means he's bad. I certainly don't mean that, but I am curious. I'm curious if there's something schematically where he's been put in a challenging spot or something that maybe he's got more to think about reading between run and pass. I don't know. As I look through, it does not tell me, there's not a good way for me to see how a player does in coverage on first down. Let me see. Field Vision Pro may help us here. And so might maybe FTN Fantasy may help us here. So let me go ahead and see if I can pull up something on Field Vision Pro. and see if it'll let me filter to first down. I'll go ahead and share my screen as I do this so you guys can see what I am seeing. And this will give us a little bit of a better idea of whether it's a player that is the problem. So let me put this up on stage. You guys can see it as I narrow things down. So we're looking at cornerbacks. Let's look about first down only, okay? We're going to look at first down only. And if we look at first down only and we look at, there's a bunch of, let's look at target EPA per 100. So the best corners in the NFL, Derek Stingley, Carlton Davis, Pat Surtain, Sauce Gardner, like you see those guys up here. If we kind of scroll down, Reek Woolen is 13th, so he's doing pretty well. Where is Devin Witherspoon? He's 27th. It's not terrible. I mean, consider there are at least 64 starting corners, and you could argue that there are 96 with the use of nickel. That's not bad. Let's look at havoc rating. Devin Witherspoon on first downs, at least by this, was 6th in the NFL. So maybe that's not an issue. Maybe it's not an issue. Maybe we should, let's go back to target EPA per 100. Let's look to see where Josh Jobe is. So, because remember, Reek Woolen was 13th. Devin Witherspoon was 27th. That's not bad. So where is Mr. Jobe? Where is he? Scrolling. It's not going to let us have. Okay, let's take down the number of snaps because Josh Jobe started later in the year. So let's get more people on this list. And let's find out where Josh Jobe is. And we're going to go back to target EPA per 100. All right. So now that I've done this, I've let some more guys in. Reek Woolen is 24th. Devin Witherspoon in this ranking is going to be farther down the list. Devin Witherspoon, where is he? Did I already pass him? I don't know. But I'm looking for Josh Jobe. And there's Trey Brown at 117th. So Trey Brown was certainly part of the problem. I wonder if I wonder if Josh Jobe shows up here. There's Devin Witherspoon at 55th. This is interesting. All right, let me keep looking. I want to find Josh Jobe. Where is Josh Jobe? Let's look at. We'll scroll to find Seahawks. So Josh Jobe. Wow. Yeah, so he was negative 40 EPA per target. Trey Brown was negative 82. That's not great. So I think the Seahawks having a third cornerback issue is at least a question mark here. Let's look at linebackers, okay? Because it's not, and we're going to look at safeties as well. We're going to see, hopefully you guys see the logic of what I'm doing here. Like I said, we're doing the research live here. We're finding out the answers together. This is how I kind of comb through the data. So what have we found so far? We have found that the Seahawks have a first down problem on defense. We have found that they've a lot of the biggest plays, a lot of the biggest issues that they've had have been pass plays on first down. We found that Devin Witherspoon had a lot of tackles on first down, which made him think maybe he was part of the issue. Well, at least by this measure and field vision, that seems less likely. It seems like maybe the third corners are a problem, but let's look at other players in coverage on first down to see if they are perhaps part of the issue. And unfortunately, they are not letting us pick. Let's see if I can limit it to pass plays only. Will it let me pick pass plays only? It does not seem like it will let me limit it to just pass plays, which is a shame. But so this is unfortunately, this is going to include, so that, by the way, that's interesting that the Devin Witherspoon number will include his run defense on first down. So I would actually go back on what I said. I don't think we've eliminated that Devin Witherspoon may be part of the issue, whether it's him or the scheme, what the scheme's asking of him on first down, because a lot of his good plays could have been related to run defense. Now, I think because we were looking at targeted EPA per 100 snaps, that should limit it to passing plays. But, I don't know for sure how Cody and the team are doing that. So now we're looking at linebacker. This is definitely going to be a little bit more. It's going to be run and pass mixed in. We're looking at havoc rating per 100 snaps on first down. Interestingly, Tyrell Dodson is 18th on this list. If we keep going down and we're looking for the first Seahawk to show up on this list, Ernest Jones is 51st, which is not great. So that's interesting. Where is Tyrese Knight? Where is Tyrese? He's 83rd. That is also not great. Maybe there's something there at the linebacker level. Let's look at safeties. And then, I might want to take a little bit of a closer look at Devin Witherspoon's specific profile and see if I can figure that out. We're going to look at targeted EPA per 100. And this is just on first downs. As I kind of scroll through this list, Kobe Bryant was 39th, which isn't terrible. It's kind of middle of the pack. As we keep going down, looking for the next Seahawk, Julian Love was 73rd. I'm curious about that. That's not great. Although I will point out, Derwin James was 70th. Budda Baker was 74th. Antoine Winfield was 75th. So there's some pretty good players well down this list. But that's interesting. And it does not look like... Does Rayshawn Jenkins even show up on this? Let's find out if he's on this. Scrolled past the Seahawks. Come on. Yeah, they only have 2 players showing up here. I wonder why Rayshawn Jenkins wouldn't show. Maybe he wasn't on the field enough on first down. It's possible. But let me go back. I'm going to find Devin Witherspoon's profile, and I want to see if I can limit the filter, game situation filter, to first down. And let's see how things look there. So there were some plays, at least on it's hard to know if this is the right side of the field or the left, depending on if this is the defense is right or the offense is right. But in any event, it looks like there was kind of some short plays against him that, if I'm reading this correctly, okay, let's go. Okay, so... Okay, no, never mind. Excuse me. I'm exploring this live. I know you guys are listening to me figuring this out together. So it looks like a lot of targets were short targets. He was not targeted deep. It does not look like he was a big part of this problem. I think we should look at Josh Jobe in that regard. All right, so let's look up Josh Jobe. And if we look at Josh Jobe, and again, we limit it to first down only. Okay. So he was someone who was giving up some reasonably large plays down the field. If I'm reading this right, he gave up 100% reception rate on passes over 20 yards on what at least here looks like the left side of the field. So he was one of the people who was giving up these big plays on first down. That's not great. Let's look up Riq Woolen just for, I know he does not seem to be the issue, but let's just take a look. And let's make sure it's first down only. Okay. So he did pretty well. He gave up a 33% reception rate he gave up a couple of these long plays, but not a lot. Let's look up Julian Love. I am curious about what was going on there. And if we look at Julian Love and we look at his coverage chart, he gave up 100% completion rate on passes over 20 yards. Interestingly, on the same side of the field. So I'm wondering if this is one of them was that play to Justin Jefferson. One of them was the play to Deebo Samuel. I'm wondering if there's something on the scheme that they've discovered, the other opponents have discovered on the deep left side of the field on first downs that they're exploiting. Because we saw it from Josh Jobe. We're now seeing it from Julian Love. Let's take a look at Ernest Jones. I have not looked at his coverage chart. So let's take a look and see if we can see how Ernest was doing in these situations. So they don't have a coverage chart for him. Okay. Maybe it's just because it's limited to first down. Let's look at Tyrese Knight, see if it will give us information on his rookie season in coverage. Okay, so we get a little bit from Tyrese Knight. That's a little bit concerning. He gave up 100% completion rate over the middle of the field on passes of between 10 to 20 yards. So that's not great. He also gave up a 78% completion rate on passes between 0 and 10 yards over the middle of the field. Part of what I'm looking at here, if you guys are like, what are we talking about? I'm just trying to diagnose where there might be some schematic weaknesses, where there might be some player weaknesses, what might be going on there, because that gives us an indication of what might be some of the solutions to what's happening. So let me check out chat, because I have not been looking at chat. Maybe you guys have some good theories as well. As I kind of scroll back through chat, well, there is a super chat, and it's from Full Throttle Gadgets. I think it's just a super thanks, and I appreciate you for giving the super chat. And if you haven't already liked and subscribed, it'd be great to have you do that. Someone said I went past Josh Jobe twice. Yeah, I did. I'm not surprised I missed him. But that's just how it goes. So I see from Catalyst here, it says, well, we'll see if any of the statistics change this year, because first down defense is definitely different compared to second and third down. This is true. The Seahawks were the best third down defense in the NFL last year by EPA per play. And so this is why I think this is so friggin' critical, because if you can be a better first down defense than you were last year, which was one of the worst first down defenses in the NFL, then the chances for the Seahawks to actually really, really tighten things up and be just a very difficult defense to play against goes way up. Which makes me wonder about DeMarcus Lawrence. And I wonder if there is a way. For me to look at. All right, I just found something else I'm going to play with for a second. I'll let you guys watch as I look at this. We'll look at team-based stats here, and we're going to look at first down only, and we're going to look at defense. And again, more evidence, you will see the Seahawks ranking really poorly on first down defense. And pass success rate, Seahawks 28th, rush success rate, Seahawks 24th. So again, indications like neither one of those are great, but it does seem to continue to indicate pass is more the issue. So I was kind of wondering if this might mean that DeMarcus Lawrence could be of more help because he is such a good run defender, but I'm questioning whether that's really the case. Maybe having feeling better about the run defense will allow Mike Macdonald to deploy more people in coverage or play more coverage savvy, more coverage friendly calls. But I'm a little bit at a loss, to be honest, of like, what's the solve here? I think Josh Jobe making a step forward in his second year as a starter. Maybe it is the whole team being more well-versed in the defense in their second season. But I think this has got to be something that is circled and highlighted. And it's absolutely going to be something that I ask the coaching staff about once we get back to talking with them at the end of July, a month from now. But this is one to watch. This is one to watch for this team. It's something to hope that Mike Macdonald and his staff are figuring out. I wouldn't say I've got a great answer for you. And as I look through, various numbers, there's certain places where I can't limit things by down and distance. So I'm going to go to Stats Hub over on FTN Fantasy to see if there's anything there that helps me get a little bit closer to an answer. And if we get to, well, this is kind of interesting. I'll share this with you guys. We'll kind of learn about this together. Maybe there'll be nothing here that's worth caring about. By the way, you can get access to Stats Hub on FTN Fantasy for a great deal if you use code HBAM. HBAM gets you 15% off on FTN Fantasy Stats Hub, all this great stuff. So you can be looking at this yourself whenever you want, and they've got all sorts of great filters. So we're going to do some advanced filtering here. We're going to look at well, we're not going to do it that way. Where can I get to first downs? Maybe it won't let me. Does it let me do first downs? Come on. It's got to let me do. It's got all sorts of crazy stuff. It won't let me do down and distance. Play situation. Quick release shotgun. All this other stuff. But what about down? Come on. Downs. There we go. First down. Okay. First down. And we're going to look at first down. And one of the things I'm going to look at, so should come as no shock. Seahawks 29th in first down yards per attempt. if we look at how many, let's look at, and this is just to make sure this is all jiving with the other stuff. Yep, Seahawks are 31st, at least in their numbers, in EPA on first downs. And if you look at EPA per dropback, they were 31st in EPA per dropback on first downs. All right, so that's all making sense and going along with the other things. The next thing I wanted to look at is, what if there's specific plays? So we can look at specific coverages. So when they are in man coverage, are the Seahawks any better on first down when they're in man coverage? So let's look at EPA per dropback again. Okay, so it's already sorted that way. The Seahawks were 31st when in man coverage. So that's no difference. But let's look now if they are in zone coverage. Is it any better? Is it any better when they played zone last year on first down? Let's see. No, not really. They were 30th in the NFL when playing zone coverage. So pretty much any coverage they were playing was bad. Let's look at different coverages that they played a lot of. So I think they played, I don't know how much cover 3 that they played. So let's look at cover 2. And 30th when they were playing cover 2. So really, we're not finding any variation. What I'm looking for is, were there situations where the Seahawks did better on first down than basically the worst in the league? 28th when they were in cover 4. Yeah, so none of this is that promising so far. Route location, throw location. Let's look left. Okay, this is where I was saying before we were seeing the worst for the Seahawks. And yes, the Seahawks were 32nd in the NFL in EPA per dropback by a mile. 0.518 EPA per dropback when the target was to the left side of the field. The next closest is 0.37. So that's a huge, huge gap between the Seahawks and the next best, or next worst, I should say. Now, if we say the throw is to the right of the field, I think this is going to be better. Based on what we found so far, I think we're going to find the Seahawks weren't as bad when the teams went right. Well, they were 26th. It was better, significantly better, 0.231 versus 0.5. That's a lot better, but they're still pretty poorly ranked overall. Were there any specific routes? Let's look at specific routes. I haven't done this before. You guys, if you're not interested, feel free to log off. I'm curious about these things, and so I want to kind of look at if there's a specific route concept that was better or worse against the Seahawks in these first down situations. So Seahawks were 6th best in the NFL in defending the deep out. And there were, 11 dropbacks. So it did happen. I thought that might be one that they struggled with. Corner routes. Curious if yeah, so they were 27th in defending those corner routes in the NFL on first down. Let's look at posts. I don't think, I guess I don't know if posts are going to be their biggest issue. Yeah, they're 14th against post routes. So a lot of the in-breaking routes, I don't think those are where they were struggling. I think they were things. Let's look at go routes. Let's just look at goes. These are just send them deep, running down the sidelines. Yeah, Seattle was 30th against go balls on first down. Only Chicago and Miami were worse. And interestingly, Miami runs the same defense as the Seahawks. The Chargers were 25th. They run the same defense as the Seahawks. Tennessee was 12th. So that limits the likelihood that this is just a weakness there. But I want to look at one other piece here on coverage stuff. Let's look at wheel routes, because I feel like that was kind of what Deebo Samuel ran against them. They were second in the NFL against wheel routes on first down. Okay. I don't know that a lot of people are running. How many times did they even face that? They only had 2 throws that were wheel routes on first down, are probably not that common. What about, let's look at digs. I think these in-breaking routes are not as much the issue. Seattle was 25th, and they gave up a pretty decent amount on that. So I'm not going to keep boring you with all these explorations, but that's a problem. It's a problem for the Seahawks. I think next for me is going to be spending a little bit more time kind of trying to diagnose and seeing if I can find a smoking gun somewhere. But as we looked at the other teams that have faced the Seahawks, they didn't get that much better. There was some improvement, but not a lot. And I think it's worth, one thing before I go, I think it's worth looking at the Baltimore Ravens defense from when Mike Macdonald was there. So I'm going to look at EPA per play for the 2022 to 2023 seasons. And we're going to see just on first down and how the Ravens defense performed. They were 5th in EPA per play over those 2 years. So there doesn't seem to be a systemic reason why a Mike Macdonald defense is going to struggle on first down. That's good news. And I think we'll kind of look at that as hopefully it's not a schematic problem. And hopefully it's something where the second year in the system will be an improvement. But if the Seahawks don't figure this piece out, they're not going to be the defense that's as good as necessary for them to really make a climb in the standings and in the contention for the NFC. Folks, if you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. Head over to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Get ad-free audio versions of this show, as well as access to the Discord channel. And you get verified on hbtix.com as a valid Seahawks fan when you do that. So please make sure you do. We're up over 20,000, almost to 21,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Would love to add you there as well. Would love some more 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Let's see where we're at. I think we're still at a 4.6. Really would love to get to 4.7. And we'll see if, I'm still a slow talker by everyone's assessment. So great stuff there. Appreciate you guys taking the time to give us 5-star reviews wherever you watch. All right, everybody, take a break. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the sunshine. I'm gonna do a hike with some family today, so looking forward to that. I will be back with you tomorrow with another show. Don't know who or what we will cover, but we'll have some fun figuring that out together. Until then, I am Brian Nemhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.